Welcome everyone to the Conference Championship Betting and DFS Preview presented by the 33rd Team. I'll be your host, Josh Larky, joined with me as I have been the past two rounds of the playoffs by the Associate Director of Fantasy and Betting, Ryan Reynolds, and the head of DFS, Jordan Vanek. You can find him on Twitter at Ryan Reynolds NFL, at Jordan Vanek DFS. Guys, let's jump right into this two-game slate. At the top, we have the Sunday afternoon game, Chiefs at Ravens. Ravens 4-point favorites. Game totals at 44.5. Ryan, we've had some line movement in this game. Talk to us about what it started at and what you think the reasoning behind that movement is.
Yeah, on Sunday night on DraftKings, it was Ravens -3. On Monday morning at most books, it moved up to 3.5. It took DraftKings until Tuesday to get there, and then it looks like today or last night maybe it moved to Ravens -4. I think the reasoning is simple: is that Baltimore's just been such a tough out. And the Chiefs' offense is underwhelmed during the regular season, been better the last 2 weeks, but they're facing a much different animal this week. This is probably, I'd say, a bad sign for the Chiefs, actually.
Yeah, Jordan, let's add on to that. You had a pretty astute observation about the Chiefs' offense through these first two playoff games. They've looked really good. You're a little concerned. How is this matchup with the Ravens unit going to be much different than those Dolphins and Bills games?
This is the first unit that they're going to be playing that's at full strength, and more importantly, full strength over the middle of the field. Bills game, A.J. Klein played 98% of the defensive snaps. A.J. Klein this season appeared in 2 games with the Bills, 54% on special teams, 18% on special teams. That's it prior to the playoffs. So it's a dude who was literally going to be planning a vacation to the Keys a few weeks ago, and all of a sudden now he's tasked to, hey, cover the middle of the field for us, and that results in Travis Kelce, Rashee Rice, some of these guys finding soft spots. And then Miami Dolphins, they were just beat to shreds. Justin Houston and Bruce Irvin played in their first games with them during that week. Duke Riley was playing, Brandon Jones was playing. You didn't have Javon Holland, you didn't have Xavier Howard. Not that this Chiefs offense isn't capable of putting up some points, it's that they haven't been overly impressive against far superior opponents. Ravens defense is built different, and they're also going to be adding a guy possibly this weekend in Marlon Humphrey.
That's all concerning to hear if you're a Chiefs fan. Ryan, what would the path to victory here be for the Chiefs? Were they to upset the Ravens? Reminder, folks, they are currently 4-point underdogs in this contest.
Since we're talking about the Chiefs offense, I think the big thing there is, twofold. One, Chiefs offensive line is a good shot to mitigate the Ravens pass rush. The Ravens pass rush has been much better this year than it was last year. And the big one for here, and this is the biggest difference maker, is Patrick Mahomes, potentially the best play extender in the history of the league. That's one angle that they have an advantage because, I don't think any of their skill players really have an advantage. I don't think there's an advantage to exploit, but if they can create drives through Mahomes, extending plays, and then on the other side, the Lamar Jackson's faced Steve Spagnuolo's Chiefs 3 times. He struggled as a passer in all those games, went over 80 yards rushing twice. I think just from a macro standpoint, Spagnuolo is more worried about Jackson as a runner. And I know I watch every game, and the thing that, everyone talks about Jackson as a passer, but there's a lot of good passers in the league. The thing that always strikes me with Jackson is there's a play every game, at least one, where it's 3rd and 12, and he'll break off a 15-yard run, extend the drive. They end up scoring on it where he's the only dude on the planet that could make that run. So if they can limit him as a runner and Mahomes can extend a few plays, extend a few drives, I think that's the path to the Chiefs winning a narrow one here.
Guys, Ryan's expert picks and score predictions for each game, they are on the 33rdteam.com site, free to view. Same with his power rankings for the 4 remaining teams. If you want his exact score predictions, if you want to know how he's viewing all 4 of these teams, make sure you're checking that out. Jordan, let's talk some DFS. Who's your preferred quarterback stack from this game, if you had to choose a side? And then what would the preferred run back be?
I love Lamar Jackson in this game, just from the standpoint of, again, he's ran for over 80 yards, I believe. He said last three times against Spagnuolo. I think he's going to be running a lot in this game as well. And Lamar Jackson knows he's 1 game away. It's in Baltimore. He tends to play somewhat of like a hero ball because he's fully capable of doing so. I think he's going to be doing that a lot in this game. And weirdly enough, the only way I would want to stack him is by playing like a Rashad Bateman, like one of these 3K options that you have at the receiver position, and then double stacking the side of the Chiefs. I want Lamar Jackson to be pushed to be explosive and extend plays, and I want this game to be one of those where you're actually having some points on the board. That's where I would want to go with, your Rashee Rice, your Travis Kelce, even Isaiah Pacheco, getting a double stack of the Chiefs and finding one of the cheap options with Lamar, because I think that's not going to be as played as like Lamar with Mark Andrews, who could be back from injury, or Lamar with Zay Flowers, which is a 5,800 player.
I like that. Ryan, let's stick with the Ravens. What's the path to victory here for them?
I thought about this earlier today. The Bill Belichick Patriots, one of the reasons they were so successful is because on defense, they mitigated opportunities for offense and they were just so consistent. They made very few errors. And I wouldn't compare the Ravens to the Patriots defense in terms of player personnel, but that's the key to their success. They're just so consistent. They reduce windows for passers. And that's the first part, is just to make Patrick Mahomes' life miserable now that he doesn't have a Tyreek Hill breaking plays, and Travis Kelce's, he's 34 years old. So he doesn't really have like a game wrecker at this point. And on the other side, like Jordan said, Lamar Jackson is one of the few players in the league that's capable of just carrying an offense. I don't necessarily think he has to do that, but even if Mahomes hangs 27 points, you have Lamar Jackson on the other side that can hang with him. And the 3 times Lamar Jackson's faced this team, the game total's been over 54 in all of those. So I think it's going to be under in this time, but the Ravens have more paths to victory than the Chiefs do.
Before we move on to the NFC Conference Championship, Jordan, give us a cheap player from this game that you might sneak into a couple of your lineups. You mentioned Rashad Bateman a little bit before. Is there anyone else out there, since we need salary savers with so many big names in these 2 games?
Yeah, I think you could go with like MBS on the Chiefs side of the ball as well. I mean, he showed up in the last game. I'm not saying that he's a great play in this matchup, but he did get some deep looks last week. He was able to catch it and actually hold on to it down the stretch. So against the Ravens, maybe Mahomes gives him a shot or two. And it feels like every single game, at least, he gets to run these clear out routes. And when Mahomes goes into a scramble drill, that's the type of player that's able to make the play down the field.
I like it. Folks, we are sponsored by Better, BETR. Promo code 33rd Team. No spaces, just 33rd Team. 8 characters. Get that 100% deposit match up to $500. We have a Better Picks article up on the 33rd Team site already for these 2 games. We have a 19x entry and a 49x entry. Let's see if we can make some good money this weekend. We did hit a 9x pick 4 last week in that Buccaneers-Lions game. Maybe we'll do it again this week. At the very least, if you're a new user, promo code 33rd Team, follow along, fade our picks, tail our picks, whatever you decide you want to do with those picks in those entry slips. There is no better option in the fantasy picks market than Better. And that deposit match, 100% up to $500, that is 5x the industry standard. Check out that article on the 33rdteam.com. Guys, NFC. Lions at 49ers, the night game. 49ers, 7.5 point favorites. Game total is not at 44.5 like the other game. It's at 51.5. And Ryan, like that first game, the AFC one, there's been some line movement. Talk to us about how the 49ers have been surging in the betting markets.
Yeah, when we did the show last Thursday and I talked about how to bet the 49ers in a Super Bowl bet as an alternative, I said if it's the Lions, I think it's going to be 6.5. That's what it opened as. It moved to 7 early in the week, and it looks like it tipped to 7.5 now. I think the reason primarily is just the Lions' pass defense has been atrocious for over a month now. So otherwise, I actually think 7.5 is a little high. So, but yeah, I think that's the reasoning behind it.
Now, when I'm looking at the DraftKings app, Ryan, you might not know the answer to this one. We're going to put you on the spot. I see that the percent of bets placed says 67% Detroit, 33% Niners. Is that just saying in terms of volume of bets rather than actual monetary there? Because as we've talked about, Lions fans are very excited about this. I used to live in Detroit. I've had multiple Detroit people texting me this week saying, you think the Lions are going to win, right? And then I'm like, well, they're touchdown underdogs. Here's why I think this might be a little bit difficult. Is that fair to think that Lions fans are swarming and they're just placing small amounts of bets potentially?
Yeah, I think most people want the Lions to win. Where like San Francisco is more of a regional thing, where most people just like the underdog. San Francisco's been around for a few years, and plus people don't really like Brock Purdy, it seems. So I think yes, there's some volume there. When it comes to those statistics, though, I would love to get like reality-based numbers like that, where this is how much money's on this side and this is where the volume is. But it does seem if DraftKings releasing that, it would be volume only.
That's what I was thinking as well. Jordan, Jared Goff's played much better in that Detroit Dome at Ford Field than on the road. It's temperature controlled. They set it at 68 degrees for every game. But they're massive underdogs. He's probably going to have to pass a lot. Maybe the efficiency is not quite as good. Is he going to be in your DFS lineups? He's kind of the second tier, I'd say, behind the Mahomes Lamar from game one. And if he's in your lineups, which receiver or receivers would you stack him with?
So he's going to get consideration just because I think he's going to be the least popular of the four. They're all relatively the same price, and it's like the $100 you can get from Goff to Purdy. You're implying more points for the 49ers, so maybe Purdy steals all those touchdowns, kind of the way that people will think about it. But from Jared Goff's perspective, if the 49ers pass rush is exactly what we saw last week against the Green Bay Packers, and then you're telling me Goff has time to throw because they just faced the Tampa Bay Bucs defense that brought pressure and they didn't really get to him. I don't mind Jared Goff in this matchup because I don't think the 49ers secondary is as good as advertised. The Green Bay Packers receivers were killing them left and right. 49ers kept holding them. They kept getting these defense pass interference calls, and it prevented from some of the explosion that could have happened with Jordan Love. Granted, those defensive pass interference got them in the red zone, and then they held them down in the red zone. Ben Johnson, this is a spot for him to kind of solidify himself as one of the best candidates for the job. If he can put up a lot of points on this 49ers defense, that will do so. So with Jared Goff, you're playing him. You play him with Amon-Ra, and you play him with Jameson Williams. It's the guy that needs to unlock it. It's the guy that can win down the field, especially against the 49ers corners who, when we've seen them give up big plays, it's been with speed and it's been crossing routes down the field, which Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams run the most on this team.
Yeah, good point there about Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. Harbaugh is now with the Chargers. Looks like Johnson is the next big domino to fall. Yep. I would imagine a big upset here would only increase the amount of years and the average annual value of that head coaching contract. Ryan, let's talk path to victory. What does it look like for the Lions in this upset? And does Deebo Samuel's injury uncertainty factor into this at all? Because as of right now, it still seems like he's highly questionable, like a true 50-50, whether or not he plays in this one.
To answer your first question, Josh, I think offensively for Detroit, if they're going to beat San Francisco, that effort's going to mimic a bit what the Bengals did to the 49ers in their victory midseason. Like Jordan said, you keep Jared Goff clean, he can play. You can hit the 49ers over the top a little bit. We've talked about Jameson Williams, where we kind of, think that's interesting a little bit this week. Big play or two over the top. And then, the other thing is, and this is why I bring up the Bengals game, the Bengals early on had some unexpected success on the ground. Didn't last the whole game, but early on it did. I think with Detroit, especially with Ben Johnson as the play caller, he's a very good run game play caller. If they can get a little bit of success on the ground early, that can change how this game plays a little bit. And then on the other side of things, guys, if you pressure Brock Purdy's a different player. If he's clean, he's going to kill this defense.
The biggest weakness here among any team would be the Lions pass defense. Jordan, Lions pass defense has allowed at least 345 passing yards to opponents in 5 straight games. Based on this, are you just going to plug and play a lot of Brock Purdy in DFS, expecting a bounce back? And then I'll ask you the same question I did Ryan. How does Deebo being in or out factor into your Purdy interest?
So with Purdy, he's going to be mainly played in the lineups that I don't get to Christian McCaffrey because I want to just take away his touchdowns and hope that he gets, 18 would be a failing game for someone who's 9K. So for me, Purdy will be played in a spot where I'm taking 2 pass catchers, and doesn't matter if Deebo plays or if he doesn't, it's going to be Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle for me the entire way. A lot of people, if Deebo sits, will go to Juwan Jennings. Personally, I would rather go to Ray McCloud as the guy that's like the gadgety, the slot receiver that can kind of create after the catch a little bit better. Juwan Jennings isn't going to get a high ADOT. He's going to have to be like what Kendrick Bourne was about 6 years ago for this offense, where he gets it on a 3rd and 4. He gets it in the red zone. While Ray McCloud will have more of a deeper opportunity and more schemed up usage from Kyle Shanahan. So overall, though, Purdy obviously bounce back performance against this Lions defense. The Lions are going to give up passing yards to him. I think that this is going to be a spot where they're not going to be able to contain him the entire game. But the biggest thing that they're going to have to do is just force a negative play within the first 2 downs. If they can get them in 3rd and longs, that is the path for them to actually hold this defense or hold this offense down. They've done it all postseason, a lot with Brian Branch on slot blitzes, a lot with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson doing so. It's going to be an intriguing matchup for Aaron Glenn if he can find ways to create the negative plays, because obviously Brock Purdy will turn over the ball, especially when he's getting pressured.
Folks, if you want some actionable bets for these 2 games, check out the Best Bets article. It's free on the 33rdteam.com. Features bets from Ryan, from our data scientist, Ahan Rungta, from one of our lead contributors, Samantha Praviti, and myself. And check out our free Discord. It's linked in all of the articles on our site. You can check out Jordan's main slate DFS piece. That will come out tomorrow. So you can see in great detail how he's playing these 2 games, what he likes, doesn't like. All of the coverage data that he's processing will be bared out in his favorite DFS plays. Ryan, 49ers, as we talked about a little bit earlier, they barely beat the Packers last week. How should the game plan shift for this matchup so they can ensure a Super Bowl berth? I imagine they do not want to rely on a last-minute Brock Purdy drive to sneak into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'll actually answer your Deebo Samuel question during this too, Josh. I think whenever you get a player like that, especially a unique guy where you can't just plug someone in and have him run go routes or anything like that, he went out early in that game, so he kind of messed up everything for what the 49ers had in mind. This week, I would imagine he plays, but in a limited capacity. And, one thing that I'm looking for here is when you have Deebo Samuel motioning to the right, Aiden Hutchinson's going to be more concerned about playing contain than if McLeod's in the backfield. So that's a wrinkle that he'll bring to the table. He'll help them better mitigate that pass rush, because if Brock Purdy's clean, I think he shreds Detroit. And like Jordan said before, defensively, the 49ers front has to win this game, essentially. If their pass rush can get to Jared Goff, they're probably going to blow Detroit out. If they don't, Detroit actually has some chance to make this very interesting. So it ultimately boils down to those 2 things for me.
Guys, Ryan Reynolds, NFL on Twitter. Check out his articles on the 33rdteam.com. Jordan is Jordan Vanek, DFS on Twitter. Jordan, last week we were all on the Jahmyr Gibbs game. It happened. Is he once again the kind of natural pivot away from Christian McCaffrey, where he is kind of the next high-end running back available here? Or are we just doing everything in our power to fit that 9K McCaffrey into our lineups this weekend?
The natural pivot away from McCaffrey is Brock Purdy's arm. That's the way you're going to have to do it this weekend. You're going to have to get all the touchdowns and avoid McCaffrey scoring, which doesn't happen often in Kyle Shanahan's scheme. He finds ways to just give him the ball near that goal line, and there's no reason to put it in Brock Purdy's hands there. But regardless, the only, I guess, pivot at the running back position that I would say is maybe Detroit actually gets up on them early, and Brock Purdy does have those turnovers. So why not play Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery and kind of hope that maybe the 49ers they have to throw. They have to be forced to throw the football. It's not only the Brock Purdy route, but it's on top of it. Maybe they get a weird turnover, special teams, punt, muff. That's kind of the pathway for McCaffrey failing. Overall, though, he's going to be played in probably 70% of lineups this weekend. It's going to be extremely difficult for him to put up a failure type game without other people doing it as well. So overall, though, I'll be getting him a lot in my lineups.
Folks, before we close out the show with a spicy Super Bowl prediction from Jordan Vanek, reminder to follow the crew, Ryan Reynolds NFL, Jordan Vanek DFS on Twitter. You can find me at JLarky tweets as well. We are also sponsored by Better, BETR, the startup co-founded by Jake Paul. It's exciting. It's got a great interface for the fantasy picks apps. Promo code 33rdteam, all one word, 33rdteam. We've got an article on the site detailing it. You can check out our fantasy and betting Twitter at 33rdFB. We'll be posting different pick slips from that, along with the reasoning behind each of those picks. You have to be checking that out. Get that deposit match. Promo code 33rdteam. Jordan, we talked pre-show. All 3 of us think the Ravens and 49ers do win this weekend. None of us are predicting any kind of crazy upsets, but you have an interesting Super Bowl prediction. So let's fast forward to February 11th. It is now Ravens Niners in the Super Bowl. How do you see that playing out?
I think the Ravens win the Super Bowl by 2 scores. I think it is on top of Mike McDonald just putting on a clinic defensively. He has basically dominated this Kyle Shanahan coaching tree all season long. He does it again in the biggest moment, and he makes those proper adjustments and counters Kyle Shanahan's game plan.